In September 2015, Emily Ridgewood lied to her parents and flew to Pennsylvania with one desperate goal: find her missing brother, Kevin. 2 years earlier, Kevin had called home from a remote mountain town called Stillwater. His voice was strange, it was barely recognizable, and he whispered, "Kevin doesn't live here anymore." Then silence. Determined to retrace his steps, Emily set out to bring him home. She didn't know Stillwater had been waiting for her. Some towns don't just claim their visitors, they remake them. This is Emily Ridgewood's final recorded account, recovered from a phone found 200 miles from Stillwater. Her body was never found. When my brother Kevin vanished 2 years ago, it felt like a part of me vanished too. I didn't know how to be around my family anymore, or around my friends. Now, small conversations that used to flow naturally felt strained and just uncomfortable. I saw the trauma in my parents' eyes and my friends', and I saw the sadness in my own. I didn't want to be a stranger in my own skin anymore. I wanted to find my brother. I wanted to bring him back home, or at the very least, I wanted answers so we could finally all begin to heal. A week before he disappeared, Kevin called us from a gas station in Marshalls Creek, Pennsylvania, to say that there was some kind of change of plan, and instead of driving home from college, he was heading to the town of Stillwater with some girl he'd met. 5 days later, Kevin rang us again from a withheld number this time, and I answered the phone. He sounded withdrawn and confused. It was a far cry from the upbeat, confident guy that we all knew and loved. He changed. Even his voice sounded different, and I knew it was him, but only just. I kept asking him what was wrong and where he was, but he just didn't answer. When I called him by his name, he paused. His breathing was heavy before replying, "Kevin doesn't live here anymore." That's the last time that any of us heard from Kevin. The police started an investigation into his disappearance, but they never found him. The theories about where he went seemed to fade away with the breeze, and everyone else seemed to move on, except for us. Behind closed doors, Mom cried all the time, while Dad buried his emotions deep inside of him so he didn't have to feel anymore. I needed answers. We all did. But I knew my parents, they would never let me visit Stillwater, so I lied to them. I said I was spending the weekend checking out college campuses with my friend Penny, but in truth, she was actually spending the weekend with her boyfriend who, despite her parents' disapproval, she was still dating. I flew to Pennsylvania, and then I sat on a sweltering bus for over 5 hours to reach my destination, the town of Stillwater. I don't know what I expected to find, but it wasn't this. With its vibrance of green and wooden houses angled into the mountainous surroundings, it almost felt overworldly. There was an eerie silence to this place. Even the insects seemed to chirp at a barely there octave. I put my first impressions down to feeling overwhelmed. I decided to go rest up in the guest house. Time wasn't going anywhere, so I could ask around about my brother tomorrow. As I walked further up that slope and into the wilderness, I didn't see one person. All I heard was the gentle hum of my own heart. Were hearts meant to hum? In this place, mine did. The thought that Kevin had walked this very path made me hold my backpack straps a little bit tighter and walk a little bit faster. On seeing a sign for the guest house nailed to a tree, I stepped off the road and I walked along the dirt path, stepping around a single hiking boot that was in the middle of it. Several flies were circling above it. It should have been weird, but it wasn't. I don't know why it wasn't. I don't know why it seemed normal. The guest house was a peach and white building that, due to its sloped position, gave off the illusion that it was fallen into the ground. The door was lodged open with an old leather hiking boot, and as I walked inside, the sweet aromas of lavender and violet seemed to heighten all around me. Old wooden benches lined the hallway and led to a small reception desk with a bell on it. I dinged it and I waited, but no one appeared. Not knowing what else to do, I sat on a bench and I scrolled through my phone, looking at old photos of me and Kevin. I don't know how long I sat there. That floral smell was tickling at my nose as I looked at memories from what felt like another life. I daydreamed so much I didn't see the chestnut-haired middle-aged man appear behind the desk, only realizing he was there when he coughed to clear his throat. I grabbed my backpack and my phone and I hurried over to him. I was explaining that I had booked a room and I had been waiting there for a while. "Oh yes, my apologies. We had a ceremony in the forest as a tradition this time of year." "Miss, what's your name?" he asked, and his eyes were seeming to twinkle as they waited for me to reply. I opened my mouth to tell him, but the smell seemed to cloud my mind. For a few seconds, I couldn't remember who I was at all. But then it came to me. I told him, Emily Ridgewood. I showed him a picture of my brother. I told him his name, and I asked if he'd seen him. And he smiled at me, and he replied, "Oh, no, I'm afraid there are no Kevins here." He handed me this large brass key with a keychain that jangled in my hand. My eyes seemed to droop, but I managed to keep them open as I walked up to the first floor and I found my room. I collapsed onto the overly soft bed and sleep claimed me. As I woke up the next morning, my open curtains let the sun creep through the gaps in the trees and I was still in my same clothes. I looked around, noticing that the smell of lavender and violet was prominent here. It seemed to radiate from the walls, and then as I walked into the bathroom, I saw a bowl of potpourri next to the basin. I looked into the mirror and, frowning at my reflection, muttered, "Kevin, is this whole place sickly sweet?" I couldn't waste any more time. I needed to try and find clues or anything about where my brother could be. As I walked past the reception, a woman smiled at me and said, "Morning, Kara. I hope you slept well." That wasn't my name, but I smiled back and replied, "Great, thank you. It smells divine." I was meant to be asking about someone, wasn't I? My brother. I was meant to be asking about him. I left the guest house. The scent of lavender was seeming to follow me as I walked into town and found a coffee shop. I ordered a coffee with cream and a sandwich, and I looked at my phone. Kevin. I was there to find him. The tiredness seemed to stick to me like pollen, but I needed to find him, my brother, Kevin. As I ordered cake from the waitress, I held the photo out and I asked her if she'd seen him, but she shook her head. When she reappeared with a slice of cake, edible flowers garnishing it, she smiled at me and she said, "Cake's on the house, Kara. It's sure nice having you back." I did not correct her, not when she was giving me free cake. As I chewed on the edible flower, I thought about how pretty that name, Kara, was. I think I ate my cake too quickly as I started feeling the sickly tired feeling, one that led me to walk back toward the guest house. Sounds seemed to echo around me, playful laughter that bounced from the trees. 2 years today since Kevin came here. I didn't want to stop thinking about him. I came here to find him. He had to be somewhere. If not here, then somewhere. Everyone had to be somewhere. I stepped over the hiking boot. This time it was void of flies. As I neared the guest house, I placed my hand in my cardigan pocket to pull out my key. Dried petals and lilac and deep shades of purple tumbled out of it and fluttered down to my feet. The smell stuck to the inside of my nose, and I twitched as I laughed at how funny it was that potpourri from the bathroom had appeared in my pocket. I hadn't put it there, had I? I don't remember doing such a thing, and I don't know why I would. I couldn't think about it anymore. I just needed to rest. I'd feel better after a good night's sleep. I'd look for him then, but not now. Not when the colors seemed to dance around me. The man was standing at the reception desk, a grass stain on his shirt collar and a dirt mark on his cheek. He nodded at me and he said, "Kara, the next naming ceremony is in 3 days. You should come." I was only checked in for 2 nights, but not wanting to offend him or correct his name error, I nodded back and I said, "Thank you, I will come if I'm still about." "Why would you not be?" He stared directly at me. "You always loved it here." I was about to say I'd never been here before, but the words caught in my throat. I hadn't been here before, had I? I couldn't explain it, but somehow the warmth of lavender felt like home. As I lay on my bed and closed my eyes, I told myself it would be different tomorrow. I'd feel less sleepy, and then I would be able to find what I was looking for. That night I dreamed I was out there amid the trees. I was laughing as I ran. I was gripping the flower headdress to my head. The laughter turned to shouts. Shouts of a name. A hand on my shoulder. A young man, his eyes as familiar as they were strange. He whispered to me, "Kara, you always loved it here." He ran through the trees and I tried to find him. As I fell to my knees, the bark scratching at my skin and red bubbling there, I knew this was not a dream at all. In the coffee house, I looked at my grazed knees and the specks of red on my flowy white dress, It's ruined, I muttered, crumbling edible petals beneath my fingers and sprinkling them onto my slice of cake. You always were clumsy, Kara, a lady next to me chuckled. Stillwater sure was empty without you in it. I smiled at her as I bit into the cake. My mouth was filling with the freshness of summer. I belonged here. This was my home. Someone changed my bedroom. Dozens of bowls of potpourri filled it, and in the closet hung a selection of flowy dresses. I rubbed a finger over the delicate fabric, and I imagined I was dancing, wild and free. I imagined it until it became real. Music played all around me as I swished out my dress, lifted my arms in the air, and I spun on the spot. I loved to dance. Didn't I? When my energy subsided, I sat on a tree trunk and I stared at my grazed knees. The man from the guest house sat next to me. My knees don't look like mine, I said to him. Kara, your knees are truly yours. He gave a dry laugh as he helped me to my feet, and we danced until we could dance no more. Only then did he lean forward, swipe back my hair, and say, "You found your name. That's worth celebrating." I sat beneath the glowing sun, and I celebrated being Kara in my own way. Then I went home, jumping over a hiking boot and a lilac-colored sneaker entwined in vines and lavender sprigs. They looked familiar. I think a girl named Emily had some once, but I don't know who Emily was. I needed sleep. It was a big day tomorrow. It was my naming ceremony. I would finally claim my name. I would dance past the trees until the name became me, and this time I wouldn't leave again. I always loved it here. That's what everyone kept on telling me, but I didn't know of a place before here. Only sweetness existed, a sweetness made for me. The next day I wore my favorite dress, blush pink with wildflowers on it, and from its pockets I pulled out handfuls of potpourri, sprinkled them around me. The locals cheered and clapped. Their long dresses and loose shirts were floating in the air. They were happy for me, happy that I'd finally owned my name. As dusk arrived, I felt nervous excitement, and I looked from my grazed knees to the fire ahead of me. I heard the screams, a twisted panic, and smelled the burning of flesh, but all I could think about was how my knees, they weren't as they should be. As I walked across the bark, one lilac sneaker on and my other foot bare, I laughed. This wasn't my sneaker. I would never wear such a thing. That was Emily's. Whoever Emily was. A hand touched my shoulder and then pulled at my dress. I heard a ripping, but I kept on walking into more hands and more rips. I passed the people. The dirt path and aisle reserved for me. They told me I should never have left. They told me I had always loved it here. Lavender and violets were everywhere, but nowhere. The smell of burning flesh stuck to me like pollen. Pollen I couldn't itch off. I didn't belong here. But I never had. I saw the bonfire and the burning flames. I looked at the wooden ladder laced in flowers that seemed unburnt. It led up to it, up to the searing blaze. And they pushed me forward. They scratched at my skin, and I walked there, toward the fire. I walked there to claim my name. The sneaker wasn't right. This wasn't right. The smoke tickled the inside of my nose, and I ran. My dress frayed like ribbons, but I ran. I ran through the trees as they screamed that name that I hadn't claimed. I had to burn to claim it, and then I could stay. I could stay here forever and be free. The audio logs recorded by Emily Ridgewood were discovered on a phone in a forest 200 miles south of the town of Stillwater, a year after she disappeared. Her backpack was also found. Her clothes were perfectly folded inside of it, and her purse was zipped in the front compartment. It is unknown how Emily's possessions came to be there, but on investigating both the area where these were found and also Stillwater, no signs of Emily were discovered. The guest house described in her audio was boarded up, and according to locals, had been for some time. Emily's parents have had to come to terms with losing both of their children under mysterious circumstances. For them, questions linger in the late summer breeze, but they carry no answers. In the Appalachian mountain range, where nature roams free, it stands to reason that not all secrets are to be shared, and there is more to the gift of a name. Stories like Emily's remind us that some places have their own gravity, pulling us in with promises of belonging even when every instinct screams to run. It's always blown my mind a little bit that only 30% of my viewers are actually subscribed to my channel, that they watch regularly. If you've been listening to these stories and they've become a part of your week, please consider hitting subscribe and joining our membership. It helps so much to keep the circle growing and to help me make better videos for you. But more than anything, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever been somewhere that felt too perfect, too welcoming, a place that made you forget who you were? Or maybe you felt that strange pull towards somewhere you'd never been, like it was calling you home. Share it in the comments below right now. We read every single one, and sometimes these shared experiences, they help others recognize when something beautiful might be dangerous. And if this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes these tales find exactly the person who needs them most. Until next time, trust your instincts when a place feels too much like home, especially when you've never been there before. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.